To me, that's interesting because I would expect at 50 milligrams or more, people that are 58 years old, every single one of them would have elevated liver enzymes. Only greater than 30% had them. And there are people getting 150 milligrams a day in this study for 8 weeks. What's up guys, Derek, moreplates.com. Today we're going to be talking about an update to the RAD140 human trials. So, there's not, some of the hype has died down in the SARMs world around the clinical testing. There's like the failed Austrian study. LGD didn't get shelved, but it has sort of encountered, I guess, obstacles in terms of getting, phase 3 trials done in the States for the target, therapeutic intervention they were originally designing it for, which was hip fractures. And then now RAD140 in particular. So this is something I've covered before, but it's obviously worth updating because a lot of people following my channel obviously followed my SARMs content. And frankly, if you haven't seen any of my SARMs overviews, I without a doubt have the most comprehensive overviews of every single SARM on the entire internet. Like, there's nobody who has broken them down in the elaborate detail I have, so I highly recommend, if you haven't checked out my articles, which have all the citations in there, or the videos themselves, which are essentially just a video representation of what my written article is, I highly recommend you check those out. But as far as RAD140, so I had outlined before in my overview that in a preclinical study, RAD140 significantly suppressed the growth and proliferation of breast cancer cells in vivo and in vitro models of AR and AR androgen receptor and estrogen receptor positive breast cancer. RAD140 has a promising preclinical profile, and Radius Health, they're the company who's developing it right now, is currently in the process of recruiting 40 postmenopausal women with hormone receptor positive breast cancer into its first phase 1 clinical trial on humans. The main goal of the study is to evaluate its safety profile, tolerability, pharmacokinetic characteristics in hormone receptor positive breast cancer. So, one of the main criticisms of SARMs is that the dosages used in the studies are way lower than what people are using for performance enhancement. And when you, take, let's just say, a 10 milligram dose of something where the therapeutic dose is actually 1 milligram, on paper, it's pretty damn abusive if you're using 10 times the therapeutic amount to achieve and yield the benefit you're trying to get out of it. Now, some of this has sort of been, exaggerated to some extent, both by, the polar opposite sides of the arguments. You have the people who are, want to harp on the, how much people are abusing them relative to the therapeutic dosages. And then on the other side, there's people who think that SARMs have no side effects. And realistically, the truth lies somewhere in the middle, in my opinion. And there definitely is side effects. But as far as, how overblown some of the, really hardcore advocates on either side are, I don't think it's representative of what's actually going on. And this RAD140 research is pretty interesting because it goes against a lot of what, some people harp on, and that is the dosages of abuse versus therapeutic promise. So in this phase 1 study, obviously they're trying to, typically in the first kind of go, they try and figure out what high levels of tolerability are. So they want to figure out how high of a dose people can use and get away with without having serious adverse events. So what goes overlooked oftentimes is that Austrian was actually considered well tolerated in dosages upwards of 100 milligrams, and LGD was well tolerated in dosages upwards of 22 milligrams. Now, granted, that data wasn't published, so it's not like we can actually, pull up the elaborate details of it. So it's often just kind of speculation around the details behind it. We just know that those were indeed conducted because it was published by the companies that were developing the compounds themselves, and they had to report it to their investors. So as far as RAD140 though, their tolerability data is up for us to see, which is really interesting. So this study was a dose escalation study with 16 patients, and the median age is 58 years old. This is a target population. Keep in mind, this is older people, not young people who can recover from, anabolic use very easily. These are an at-risk population that is a target demographic for the actual therapeutic intervention of this SARM. And 58 years old. The dosages used were 50 milligrams for 6 of them per day, which is already far exceeding what even abusive territory would be considered to somebody using these for performance enhancement. 100 milligrams in 7 of them, which is like over double what most people are using for performance enhancement, and 150 milligrams for 3 of them. So these are like ridiculous dosages, and these were dosed once per day. Median time on treatment was 8 weeks. 8 weeks. So we're looking at a at-risk population testing out this SARM for at least 2 months with a range of 1 to 25 weeks, with the median time on treatment being 8. At dosages at minimum being extremely high relative to what, we presume to be a high dosage in a performance enhancement context to begin with. And again, this isn't to justify anything in this video. It's more so to relate it to a real life scenario in which you are probably more familiar with, because the only dosages that have been evaluated of RAD140 are anecdotally in the fitness community, pretty much at dosages around like 10 to 30 milligrams a day kind of thing. And we have older people trying out fucking 50 to 150 milligrams a day here for months, not just a couple of weeks. So the most frequent adverse events in greater than 30% of them, so not that many, was elevated ALT and AST, which is expected, decreased weight and appetite and constipation. And again, this goes to show everyone thinks SARMs are not liver toxic. It's not the case whatsoever. I've talked about this many times. I'm not going to get into it in detail, but they will raise your AST and ALT. And as you can see here, but it's not as much as you would have expected. You would have expected everyone to have gotten destroyed based on what I'm looking at here. But no, dose-limiting toxicities, all grade 3 and reversible, were hypophosphatemia in 2 of them in the 150 milligram group, and elevated ALT and AST in 2 of them in the 50 and 100 milligram group. No drug-related deaths occurred. There was 1 partial response, PR 100 milligrams, and 2 points with stable disease greater than 12 weeks, the time to PR. And they're basically talking about here, because obviously there's a actual end goal with the study. It's not just to see if they tolerate the medication, it's to actually see if it does something too in terms of their actual efficacy measures. But anyways, the time to PR was 15.9 weeks and the duration was 8.6 weeks. SHBG decreased in 12 points and PSA increased in 14 points, most notably in the PT with PR who remains on treatment at 7 months. So also expectedly SHBG drops, which is another thing you will expect from SARMs. But conclusions, the provisional maximum tolerated dose for RAD140 is 100 milligrams once per day. RAD140 is a novel oral AR targeted agent for treatment of estrogen receptor breast cancer with an acceptable safety profile and preliminary evidence of target engagement and anti-tumor activity. So this is really promising, not just in a therapeutic context, but also for our own extrapolation for our own, I don't even use RAD140, I'll be honest. It kills, it seems to be pretty rough on the hair. It's not nearly as tissue selective as the data implies in the preclinical data. However, the preclinical data looks really good, and this looks really good. So maybe I'm just, maybe some people just had bad experiences. Maybe they didn't get actual RAD140. I don't know, but this looks really good to me. And, certainly is worth keeping an eye on in the future for sure. We have literal end targets being met for anti-tumor activity. And then we also have well-tolerated dosages exceeding far above what would be used in a performance enhancement context in individuals who are an at-risk population of median age 58 years old, who are have problems, not healthy individuals. So to me, this is absolutely worth keeping an eye on and was worth making an update about. And it is good to see that further research is still being done on SARMs, because I think they are at least one of the few pathways that are promising in the future in the anabolic space. So anyways, take from that what you will. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, subscribe, check out my blog, moreplates.moredates.com. Follow me on Instagram at moreplates_moredates. Facebook, Snapchat, BitChute, Twitter, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, wherever I am. If you want to support the channel, you can check out my turnkey pre-workout nootropic formulas below. I compel you to just compare your label of your current pre to my pre, and you will quickly see why you should switch because it's literally me who sits down on a Word document and formulates these products. So I stand behind them, and I highly, if you want to support the channel, greatly appreciate when you guys go buy those products, as well as anything else in the video description below as well. Also, sign up to the mailing list if you want to get updated whenever I put out elaborate deep dive articles and things like SARMs, things like bodybuilding pharmacology, health optimization, longevity, stuff like that. You're not going to get sent those articles if you don't sign up to the mailing list. First link description below. Those have all the clinical studies I reference linked in them too, for you to actually delve into further yourself. They're not included in the videos, so a lot of incentive to sign up for that. So thank you guys for watching. Talk to you soon.